Hello, welcome to IT Expert YouTube video series. Today we are going to talk about React. What is React? React, also known as React.js or React.js, is an open-source JavaScript library developed and maintained by Facebook. It is primarily used for building user interfaces for single-page applications where the user experience needs to be dynamic and interactive. React allows developers to create reusable UI components that can efficiently update and render in response to data changes. What is React architecture? React is a popular JavaScript library for building user interfaces, and when people refer to React architecture, they are typically talking about the overall structure and organization of a React application. React provides a component-based architecture, which encourages developers to break down their user interface into small, reusable components. What is React components? React components are the building blocks of React applications. React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces, and it enables developers to create reusable and modular UI components. A React component is essentially a piece of the user interface that can be reused throughout an application. There are two main types of React components: functional components and class components. However, with the introduction of React hooks in React 16.8, functional components became more powerful and are now the preferred way of writing components. Functional components. Functional components are JavaScript functions that take in props short for properties and return React elements. They are simpler and more concise than class components. With the introduction of React hooks, functional components can now have state and lifecycle features through hooks like useState, useEffect, and others. Class components. Class components are ES6 classes that extend from React component. They have a render method that returns the React element. Class components can have local state and lifecycle methods. React components. Definition. Components are the building blocks of a React application. They are reusable and self-contained pieces of code that represent a part of the user interface. Types. There are two main types of components in React: functional components and class components. With the introduction of React hooks, functional components can now manage state and have lifecycle methods, making them more powerful. State. Definition. State is a JavaScript object used to store and manage the dynamic data of a component. It represents the current condition or state of a part of the user interface. Usage. Components can have state, and when the state changes, React automatically re-renders the component to reflect the updated state. Render. Definition. The render method is a mandatory method in a class component in React. It is responsible for describing what the UI of the component should look like based on its current state and props. Purpose. When the state or props of a component change, the render method is called again, and the UI is updated accordingly. Props. Definition. Props, short for properties, are inputs to a React component. They are used to pass data from a parent component to a child component. Immutable. Props are immutable, meaning they cannot be changed by the child component. If a change is needed, it should be managed by the parent component. Router. Definition. React Router is a library for handling navigation in React applications. It enables the navigation among views of various components in a React application, allows changing the browser URL, and keeps UI in sync with the URL. Usage. React Router provides a browser router component and a set of route components, route, switch, etc. that help in defining the navigation structure of your application. What is React Lifecycle? React Lifecycle refers to the series of events that occur throughout the existence of a React component. These events can be categorized into three main phases. Mounting phase. Constructor. This is the first method called when a component is created. It is used for initializing state and binding event handlers. Static get derived state from props. This is a static method that is called before rendering when new props or state are received. It is used to update the state based on the changes in props. Render. This method is responsible for rendering the component hierarchy. It returns the JSX that represents the UI. Component did mount. This method is called after the component is rendered for the first time. It is often used for making AJAX requests or interacting with the DOM. Updating phase. Static get derived state from props. Similar to the mounting phase, this method is also called before rendering when new props or state are received. Should component update. This method is called before rendering when new props or state are received. It determines if the component should re-render or not. By default, it returns true. Render. Again, the render method is called to update the UI. Get snapshot before update. This method is called right before the changes from the virtual DOM are to be reflected in the actual DOM. It allows the component to capture some information from the DOM before it is potentially changed. Component did update. This method is called after the component is re-rendered. It is often used for performing side effects, such as making AJAX requests based on the updated state. Unmounting phase. Component will unmount. This method is called before a component is removed from the DOM. It is used for cleanup tasks such as canceling network requests or clearing up subscriptions. What is JSX? JSX, or JavaScript XML, is a syntax extension for JavaScript recommended by React for describing what the UI should look like. JSX allows you to write HTML elements and components in a syntax that looks similar to XML or HTML, but it is ultimately transformed into regular JavaScript by a preprocessor like Babel, before being rendered by the browser. What is React State Management? In React, state management refers to the management of the local state within a component or the global state across multiple components. React components can have internal state that determines their behavior and appearance. State management becomes crucial as applications grow in complexity and components need to communicate or share data with each other. There are primarily two types of state in React. Local state. Local state is managed within a single component. It is set using the useState hook in functional components or the thisState and thisSetState methods in class components. It is suitable for managing component-specific data. Global state. Global state is shared among multiple components. It helps manage application-level data or shared data that needs to be accessed and modified by different parts of the application. Various state management solutions exist for global state, such as React Context API, Redux, MOBX, etc. What is React Virtual DOM? React Virtual DOM, or simply Virtual DOM, is a key concept in the React JavaScript library. React uses a virtual representation of the document object model to efficiently manage and update the user interface. Here is how it works. Real DOM. The DOM is a tree-like structure that represents the structure of a web page. Each time there is a change in the application state, for example, user interaction, the entire real DOM is updated. Virtual DOM. React introduces a lightweight, in-memory representation of the real DOM called the virtual DOM. When the state of a React component changes, a new virtual DOM tree is created. This virtual DOM tree is a lightweight copy of the real DOM. Diffing algorithm. React compares the new virtual DOM tree with the previous one using a process known as reconciliation or diffing. It identifies the differences or diffs between the new and old virtual DOM trees. Minimal updates. React determines the minimum number of changes required to update the real DOM based on the identified differences. Instead of updating the entire real DOM, React only updates the specific parts that have changed. Batch update. React batches multiple updates and performs them in a single cycle, optimizing performance. The use of a virtual DOM provides several advantages. Performance. Updating the real DOM can be an expensive operation. By first updating a lightweight virtual representation and then determining the minimum necessary changes, React minimizes the impact on performance. Efficiency. React can batch updates and apply changes in an optimized manner, reducing the number of manipulations needed on the actual DOM. Declarative syntax. React's declarative syntax allows developers to describe how the UI should look based on the application state. React takes care of updating the DOM efficiently. How to create React sample application. Creating a simple React application involves several steps. Before you begin, make sure you have Node.js and Node Package Manager installed on your machine. Here's a step-by-step guide to creating a basic React application. Step 1. Install Node.js and npm. You can download and install Node.js from the official website. Node.js Node Package Manager is included with Node.js. Step 2. Create a React app. Open a terminal or command prompt and run the following command to create a new React app using Create React App. Step 3. Navigate to the project directory. Change your current directory to the newly created project directory. Step 4. Run the app. Start the development server with the following command. Step 5. Explore the code. Open the project directory in your preferred code editor, for example, Visual Studio Code, Atom, etc., and explore the files and folders. The main React component is located in the src directory, in a file named app.js. Step 6. Make changes. Experiment with making changes to the src app.js file. You can edit the existing components or create new ones. Step 7. Save and see changes. As you save changes in your code editor, the development server will automatically update the application in your browser. This hot reloading feature is one of the benefits of Create React App during development. Step 8. Build for production. When you are ready to deploy your application, you can create a production build using the following command. Step 9. Deploy optional. If you want to deploy your application, you can use platforms like Netlify, Vercel, or GitHub Pages. Each platform has its own deployment process, so follow their documentation for specific instructions. What is React Development Tool? React Developer Tools is a browser extension or browser developer tool that helps developers debug and inspect React applications. It is an essential tool for anyone working with React.js, a popular JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Here are some key features and functionalities of React Developer Tools. Component tree. It provides a hierarchical view of the React components in your application, making it easier to understand the structure of your UI. Component inspection. You can inspect the props and state of each component, helping you understand how data flows through your application. Component highlighting. It allows you to highlight and inspect specific components on the page, making it easier to identify and understand the relationship between different parts of your UI. State and props changes. React Developer Tools lets you view and track changes to the state and props of your components, helping you debug and understand how data is being passed around. Time travel debugging. This feature allows you to navigate back and forth through the state and props changes, helping you understand how your application's state evolves over time. Hooks support. It provides support for inspecting React hooks, which are functions that let you use state and other React features in functional components. Integration with browser dev tools. React Developer Tools integrate seamlessly with the browser's native developer tools, enhancing the overall development and debugging experience. To use React Developer Tools, you typically need to install the browser extension for the browser you are using, for example, Chrome, Firefox. Once installed, you can access the React Developer Tools from the browser's Developer Tools menu. This tool is immensely valuable for React developers, as it simplifies the process of understanding and debugging complex React applications by providing insights into the component hierarchy, state changes, and more. What is React best practice? React, a JavaScript library for building user interfaces, has several best practices that can help developers write efficient, maintainable, and scalable code. Keep in mind that best practices can evolve over time, so it is essential to stay updated with the latest recommendations from the React team and the community. As of my last update in September 2021, here are some React best practices. Component structure. Organize your components in a modular and reusable manner. Use a folder structure that makes sense for your application scale. Consider grouping components, styles, and tests together. Functional components and hooks. Prefer functional components over class components. Use hooks, for example, use state, use effect, use context for state management and side effects. State management. Lift state up when needed to share state between components. Use state management libraries like Redux for complex state management. Immutable data. Ensure that state and props are not mutated directly. Use methods like setState for state updates. Consider using libraries like Immutable.js for handling immutable data structures. Conditional rendering. Use conditional rendering to show or hide components based on certain conditions. Avoid unnecessary re-renders by using React Memo or Pure Component. Key prop in lists. When rendering lists, always provide a unique key prop to help React efficiently update and reorder components. Destructuring props and state. Destructure props and state in the function parameters or within the component body for cleaner code. Event handling. Use arrow functions or bind in the constructor for event handlers to avoid potential performance issues caused by creating new functions on each render. Prop types. Use prop types to document and validate the expected types of props. CSS in JS. Consider using a CSS in JS solution, for example, styled components for better component styling and encapsulation. Error boundaries. Implement error boundaries using component did catch or error boundaries in React 16 and later to gracefully handle JavaScript errors within a component tree. Testing. Write tests using tools like Jest and React Testing Library to ensure the stability of your components and application. Performance optimization. Use tools like React Dev Tools and performance profiling to identify and optimize performance bottlenecks. Memoize expensive calculations using use memo and use callback to avoid unnecessary recalculations. Code splitting. Implement code splitting to load only the necessary parts of your application when needed. Version control. Use version control systems, for example, Git, and follow best practices for commit messages, branching, and collaboration. React pros and cons. Here is a comparison of the pros and cons of React. Pros. Virtual DOM. React uses a virtual DOM, which improves performance by minimizing direct manipulation of the actual DOM. Component-based architecture. React follows a component-based architecture, making it easier to manage and reuse code. JSX. JSX is a syntax extension for JavaScript that allows mixing HTML with JavaScript, making it more readable and easier to write UI components. Flexibility. React is more flexible and can be easily integrated into existing projects. Unidirectional data flow. React follows a unidirectional data flow, which makes it easier to debug and understand how data changes over time. Large community and ecosystem. React has a vast community and a rich ecosystem of libraries and tools. Cons. Learning curve. JSX and the concept of a virtual DOM may have a steeper learning curve for some developers, especially those new to front-end development. Boilerplate code. React applications might require more boilerplate code, although this has been mitigated to some extent with the introduction of tools like Create React App. Opinionated. React is less opinionated than Angular, which means developers need to make more decisions about project structure and architecture. Angular. Pros. Full-featured framework. Angular is a full-fledged MVC framework that comes with many built-in features and tools, such as dependency injection and two-way data binding. Type, script. Angular is built with TypeScript, a statically typed superset of JavaScript, which can help catch errors during development. Command line interface. Angular CLI simplifies the process of setting up and managing Angular projects. Two-way data binding. Angular provides two-way data binding, making it easier to manage the synchronization between the model and the view. Modularity. Angular encourages the use of modules, making it easier to organize and scale large applications. Cons. Steep learning curve. Angular has a steeper learning curve compared to React, mainly due to its full-featured nature and the use of TypeScript. Heavier. Angular applications can be larger in size compared to React applications, which may affect initial load times. More opinionated. Angular is more opinionated, which means developers may have less flexibility in certain aspects of the application architecture. Community size. While Angular has a large community, it is not as extensive as the React community. 15 React interview questions and answer. What is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It allows developers to create reusable UI components and manage the state of these components efficiently. Explain the virtual DOM in React. The virtual DOM is a concept where an in-memory representation of the actual DOM elements is maintained by React. When there are changes in the state of a component, React first updates the virtual DOM, then calculates the difference between the current virtual DOM and the previous one, and finally updates the actual DOM with only the necessary changes. This process improves performance by minimizing the number of direct manipulations to the DOM. What is JSX in React? JavaScript XML is a syntax extension for JavaScript recommended by React. It allows developers to write HTML elements and components in a syntax similar to XML or HTML, within JavaScript code. JSX is not mandatory for writing React applications, but it makes the code more readable and concise. Explain the concept of state in React. State in React is a JavaScript object that represents the current state of a component. It is mutable and can be changed over time in response to user actions, network responses, or other events. When the state of a component changes, React re-renders the component to reflect the updated state. What is the significance of props in React? Props, short for properties, are a mechanism in React for passing data from a parent component to a child component. Props are immutable, meaning that a child component cannot modify the props it receives from its parent. They are used to configure a component and provide it with the necessary data. Explain the difference between state and props. State is internal to a component and can be modified by the component itself, while props are external and passed to the component by its parent. State is mutable, and changes trigger a re-render of the component, while props are immutable. What is a React component? A React component is a reusable, self-contained unit of UI that can be composed of other components. Components can be either functional or class-based and are the building blocks of a React application. What is the significance of keys in React lists? Keys are used in React lists to help identify which items have changed, been added, or been removed. They should be unique among siblings and are essential for efficient rendering and updating of lists. What is the role of the setState method? The setState method is used to update the state of a React component. It takes an object as an argument, which represents the new state values. React then re-renders the component, reflecting the updated state. Explain the purpose of React Router. React Router is a library for handling navigation in a React application. It enables the creation of a single-page application with navigation, allowing the user to navigate between different views or pages without triggering a full page refresh. What are React hooks? React hooks are functions that allow functional components to have state and lifecycle features. They were introduced in React 16.8 to enable the use of state and other React features in functional components, replacing the need for class components in many cases. What is the significance of the useEffect hook? The useEffect hook in React is used for side effects in functional components. It allows you to perform actions such as data fetching, subscriptions, or manually changing the DOM after the component has been rendered. What is context in React? Context in React is a feature that enables the sharing of values, such as themes or user authentication status, across components without explicitly passing props at every level. It provides a way to pass data through the component tree without having to pass props down manually. Explain the concept of controlled and uncontrolled components. Controlled components are components whose state is controlled by React. The state is stored in the component state property, and changes are handled using setState. Uncontrolled components, on the other hand, store their state in the DOM itself, and React does not control the state. They are usually accessed using refs. What are higher-order components in React? Higher-order components are functions that take a component and return a new component with additional props or behavior. They are a way to reuse component logic, share code between components, and abstract complex logic into a reusable form. Thank you for watching this video. We provide hands-on training with labs, homework, group projects. Prepare you for the certification. Provide real projects. Internship opportunities. Support you and resume LinkedIn. Staffing support. Provide tech references. In-person online class. Class retake options and more. Call us at 847-350-9034 for your free career consultation meeting. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for the latest videos.